Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. In today's video, we're going to be continuing our series. We're going to be breaking down the tight ends and the defensive ends. That includes the Leos and the strong side D ends. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and jump into the tight end room. All right, so first and foremost, this room only has 6 players currently. We've got 3 that are considered seniors. Number 1 is going to be Luke Schaus. I think he's more of a walk-on guy. He's probably not going to play very much, if at all. But the next one is Miles Kitselman. And that is our transfer guy from Alabama. Love what he's been doing. Everyone's been raving about him. We know that he's going to be a stud for us in what should be a really good 3 tight end rotation this season. Now, Charlie Browder is a player that we talked about as a redshirt junior before in that Cole Kublik show, and also on some other videos with P and I, where we said, hey, man, he looks really good. So he could end up being a player for us this season, but really I'm looking more towards next season because we're not anticipating that he'll be playing that much this year. But next season, as we're kind of going through this, y'all will see that the depth is going to start to dwindle off. The bodies are going to start to dwindle off. And it's going to be really important to have a guy like Browder that's more of a veteran that we feel like can kind of carry the load along with Ethan Davis. On to the juniors, we've got Holden Stays, who is a redshirt sophomore. Now, he could come back for one more season, but we're thinking he's probably going to have a really big year and go on to the NFL. But he's a really good player. Transfer from Notre Dame. He's more that balanced tight end body where he's really good at blocking, but he's also great at going out for passes, catching the football. He's got great straight line speed. I think that him and Ethan Davis as a 1-2 punch, because they're going to be, the primary players for us at tight end this season. I think that we're going to have a really special room. Now, on to the sophomores. The only player there is Ethan Davis, who is a redshirt freshman this season because he got injured, okay, I want to say in the spring game last year, and he was out for pretty much all that season. Well, really most of it, I think that the staff didn't feel like he was quite ready to come in and play, but I think that he probably could have done something, especially with Brew going down. I think that we probably could have used him as that, like bigger body wide receiver. That's really what he is. 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in that ballpark. And he runs excellent routes. He's a superior athlete. He's more of that pass catching tight end, but he can also block. I love what I saw from him throughout spring. I like what I've heard about him just as far as being a good inline blocker. It seems like what Coach Heupel likes to do is bring in one, tight end in every class that's more of a wide receiver type of a guy, and then another one that's more of a blocker. We'll see that as we get to the recruiting portion of this. And then as a true freshman, we have Cole Harrison. Now, Cole Harrison would be that, kind of wide receiver body for his class in 2024. I haven't seen him so far on campus, but we love what we've seen from him on film. I mean, he looks like he's very, very well coached, coming all the way from California. Super long, super tall, super rangy. He's a little bit on the lighter side. He's going to have to fill out before he can play SEC ball, but I think that he's going to be a very good one, especially if you're talking about, trying to have some packages with him and Ethan Davis in 2025. It should be very, very special. Now on to the recruiting portion of the tight end room. And this also looks very bare. We only have one commit, and it looks like, as far as I can tell, we're really only targeting one other player. I just think that Coach Heupel is extremely selective with the tight ends that he brings onto this team. So our commit for 2025 is Jack Van Dorselier. Love his game a whole lot. 6'5", 6'6", 230 pounds. Coming from South Lake, Carroll down there in Texas. That's another great program. We love to go out and get tight ends from really good programs. He's a guy that on film looks like he's going to be more of an inline blocker, but he can also run routes. Reminds me a lot of Miles Kitselman, who some people looked at his film and said, well, we're not seeing a whole lot of him going out for passes. Looks like he's only a blocker, but you can tell whenever he is going out for these passes that he is going to do a great job just of running routes, making tough catches, and he's just a dog, period. That's what we need, okay? He's going to be more of the, I would say blocking body in this class. Now, I also feel like, again, like I just touched on, that he can go out for passes. I love him. Honestly speaking, I think that he probably is going to be a little bit better than the next player that we're going to be talking about, just, as far as long term. But I would expect that he's a player that could come in and potentially play some as a true freshman if we need him to. He should be physically ready already at 230 pounds, expecting that maybe, from now to the end of his senior season, he might get another 10 to 15 pounds. And once he gets up on campus, expect for him to gain another 10 to 15 pounds if he needs to. So now we've already got him anywhere between 240 to about 255 pounds. That sounds like an SEC caliber tight end in my opinion. So we should all be very, very excited about Big Jack. Now, on to the next player. Deshaun Brom, who is a 4-star tight end from Kansas, is the only other player that we're really targeting at the tight end position in the class of 2025. Now, we have offered several players, and I think that the ones that we really wanted either already committed somewhere else or they're just not that interested in our program. And that's perfectly fine because I think that if we can close out on Deshaun, then our room should be pretty solid for the next probably 2 to 3 seasons. But right now, it sounds like Oregon is the front runner. A lot of people also think that he might want to kind of stay Midwest, so Oklahoma, Kansas State. But I do think that Tennessee is in a really good spot, okay? We're trending at this point. And as we are scrolling down here, you can see the visits that he has set up. It's OU, which is coming up on June the 7th. And then he's got Oregon on June the 21st. And in between those two visits is going to be him coming up to Knoxville on June the 13th. So he's a player that, you know, he looks great on film, okay? You see a whole lot of him being more of that pass catcher, which would kind of go along with what we said before, when the staff likes to go out and get one good pass catcher and one that's more of an inline blocker. We already have that inline blocker in Big Jack for this class. We think that Deshaun Braun would be a little bit more of that, you know, go out and get the football type of a guy. But I think that Jack is good enough to do both of those things at such a high level that Deshaun isn't necessarily a player that we absolutely have to have. Now, it would be great to have him just for some depth purposes, but it's not, you know, like the end of the world if we can't close out on him. So I want for y'all to keep that in mind as we're just, you know, kind of going through all this stuff throughout all the offseason. Do we want to land him? Of course we do. Is it going to kill us if we don't? I don't think so, because we can still go into the transfer portal and add somebody that's a little bit more proven if we feel like we need to, you know, maybe either heading into the 2025 season or heading into that 2026 season. We might do a little bit of both, but I know that this staff wants to get away from having to go out and get a tight end, you know, from the transfer portal every single year. So we might kind of be another year or two away from that unless we can land Deshaun. But like I said, y'all, no cause for concern here. We're going to be just fine. All right, and now for the final position group of the day, we're going to be talking about defensive ends. Strong side DNs, we currently have 7 of them. We think that next season we'll have anywhere between 4 to 6. And then for the Leos, we currently have 6. We're anticipating anywhere between 4 to 5 next season. We have a total of 13 defensive ends. We think that we will have somewhere between 7 to 11 total for 2025. So starting off with the seniors, Big Dominic Bailey, redshirt senior. He's done. No more eligibility left for him. Strong side DN. Hoping he has a really good year. He's been pretty consistent throughout his tenure at Tennessee, but it sounds like he is getting better and better. He's going to be fighting for a starting position at that strong side DN spot, but there's several others that could win that position battle, you know, as time kind of goes on throughout the summer. So on to the juniors, we've got Joshua Josephs at the Leo position. He's been really good, and we're hoping that he can continue to be, you know, a kind of a dominant force, you know, kind of a dominant presence. But he is going to have to pick up some because James Pearce is going to be getting a whole lot of attention. And once he comes off of the field, they'll probably try to dedicate some attention to some other spots. So we need for Joshua Josephs to maybe not be as productive as James Pearce is going to be, but just to get after that daggum quarterback. If he could have anywhere, I would say between 5 to about, you know, maybe 10 sacks, he's having a great year, and he's probably going to be going on to the NFL. So he'll be one of the players inside of that room that we think could be potentially leaving us after this season. Now, James Pearce, we all know, best pass rusher in the entire country, probably going to be a first-round draft pick, more than likely a top 10. If he comes out and has double-digit sacks this season and just continues to kind of build off of what he did last year, then we're talking about a guy that should be top 5 and probably won't be number 1 just because we know the quarterbacks usually are going to be picked, you know, with the teams that really, really need them, and they're usually picking first. But he probably will be the highest rated player in the 2025 draft. Now, on to the next strong side defensive end in Tyree West. Heard a whole lot about him. He looked great in that Citrus Bowl last season. You know, I like what I see from him. I think that he can get after that passer and does a great job of setting that edge. That's more of what the strong side DNs do. And then we've got Donald Palmer. I believe that he is going to be more of an end body just because of his size and his frame. Don't know a whole lot about him. Haven't seen him play too much. Okay, I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. I don't know if he's a strong side DN or if he's a Leo, but he's more of a walk-on, so it's not really going to be a factor for us this season. Now, Jason Jenkins at the strong side DN position is a guy that we've also heard a ton about, especially coming from the coaches, coming from some of his teammates. They can't stop raving about him. So, hey, you know, we also heard Cube talk about him as well. So hopefully he can do the same thing as everyone else and just kind of continue to build off of what we've seen so far. If he does that, then we should be really deep inside of that room. He's going to be another one that's fighting to be a starter along with Dominic Bailey and Tyree West. Now on to the sophomores. We've got big Caleb Herring at the Leo position. So happy that he decided to stick around with us after his brother goes on to Memphis. I think he's going to have a great season, okay? Him rotating in with James Pearce and with Joshua Josephs. Love what I saw from him last year. I don't remember how many sacks he had, but you could just tell he was about, maybe like a foot away, like a click away from getting several sacks. Probably going to be, taking that next step forward this season. And he could be a guy that gets, anywhere again from about 5 to maybe 10 sacks, all depending on the opportunities that he's given and how he takes advantage of those opportunities. Next player is going to be Shandavian Bradley at the Leo position. Now, he was redshirted last year, but I like what I've seen from him. He still needs to gain a little bit of weight. He's very long, very, very twitchy. I think that if he can continue to add some more weight to his frame, get up maybe 10 to 15 more pounds, then yeah, that's just another pass rusher that we have that's going to be very, very special. And then we've got Tyree Weathersby, who is a redshirt freshman, and he's a strong side DN. Now, P and I loved his film coming out of high school. We felt like he had a chance to play as a true freshman, and lo and behold, the insiders and experts are saying that that was what was about to happen if he didn't have that, season-ending injury. I think it was a hip or something. So the staff has done a really good job of kind of slow walking him back onto the field. I still think that he's probably going to be the starter. Maybe not at week 1, right? Like not versus UT Chattanooga, but probably by Oklahoma, we might be seeing him as a starter. So really, really deep already inside of this room. And then we've got Emmanuel Okoye, who has now been moved over to the defensive line from tight end. And we just talked about the tight ends. That room got a lot thinner once he left, but at the same time, he probably was not going to be contributing too much this season. He's very new to football. Playing on defense is going to be so much easier for him just to go hunt. But what I saw from him in that orange and white game, don't know if he's going to be playing at Leo or at strong side D, and I believe that he could play both at a very high level. Still super raw. He's going to progress tremendously from the time that we saw him in spring to the time that we see him by kickoff. So I would expect for him to for sure be a guy that we can count on in some situations. Now, he is going to have to do a much better job of not jumping off sides, but that just goes back to him having very limited reps before the orange and white game. So we should be very, very excited about this room for sure. Now, on to the true freshman. We've got big Kellen Lindstrom, who is going to be a strong side D. And I saw him flash some in the orange and white game. Haven't heard a whole lot about him, but I loved his high school film. He's going to be really good for years to come. So do not forget about Kellen Lindstrom. The next player is going to be Carson Gentle, who I don't think is up on campus yet. I believe he's going to be up maybe at the end of this month. But once he does come up, I think that he's another one that has a really good chance to contribute, maybe not as a true freshman, just because you see how deep we are here, right? But maybe as a sophomore, right? Maybe I would say definitely as a junior, he should be very, very dominant at the strong side D in position. And then we've also got big Jordan Ross, who is probably the best player in the 2024 class. Just tall, long, rangy. P and I probably beat this thing to death for y'all, but just as athletic with a lot more upside as a James Pearce, almost about the same size as a true freshman. Cannot wait to hear what he does once he gets up on campus. I can just tell you right now, we should be expecting to hear a ton about him. Maybe more buzz about him than what we heard from Boo Carter over spring, Edwin Spillman over spring, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, all these freshmen, right? This is probably the best freshman class from top to bottom, not just for the D ends, but at every single position on this team that we've had in a very long time. I think that it's very underrated, and we've now got the coaching staff that can get these guys ready to play ball. And then, their teammates are going to push them as well, especially these veterans that are going to be leaving. So a really great culture, and, I love what this staff has done so far. Let's go ahead and talk about recruiting for the defensive ends. And the first player is going to be Cortez Harris. He is a 4-star, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's from Maryland, and he is going to be visiting our Volunteers June the 7th, which is really big. Sounds like Penn State and Maryland are the teams to beat. And as you're just looking at these visits, you can see that he will be visiting Penn State and Maryland along with our Volunteers. So hopefully we can close out on Cortez. And then next up is going to be Damian Shanklin, another 4-star D and about 6'5", 215 pounds. He's from Indiana. Sounds like he's, really wanting to go to Notre Dame. I can understand that just because he's from there. I don't particularly care for Notre Dame, but it just is what it is. Now, the interesting thing is I don't see any official visits set up with Notre Dame. Maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to do that at this point because he's probably been able to go up there so many times throughout his life. But Ohio State will also be getting a visit. We're going to be getting ours June the 13th, and then we see that Alabama will also be getting a visit June the 21st. And next up is going to be Jared Smith, 6'6", 235 pounds from Hoover, Alabama. I think he's more of a strong side DN body. And it looks like South Carolina is the team that is trending for the 4-star out of Alabama. And we can take a look at his visits right here. He will be visiting our Volunteers June the 14th. He's also going to be visiting UGA on June the 7th. I hope that he doesn't go there. Much rather see him at South Carolina. South Carolina, he's going to be visiting May the 31st, which is at the end of this month. Sounds like he's not going to be attending our 865 live event if he's going to be going to South Carolina. And he's also going to be visiting USC on June the 21st. But I would really like to be able to land Jared Smith. I love his film. I love his game. But it does sound like it's going to be a little bit of a long shot. We're going to have to do a great job of impressing him and his family on his visit coming up next month. This next player we've heard a ton about from VolQuest, pretty much all the insiders and experts surrounding Tennessee football. Zion Grady, he's a 4-star, 6'4", 225 pounds from Alabama. I think that he could play either strong side D, and if he gains, 20 to 30 pounds or something like that, but he's probably going to be more of that Leo guy. And it sounds like he was kind of trending towards Tennessee to start things off. I don't know how well things are going at this point. You see several visits set up. He's been to Auburn a whole lot, and he does have a visit set up with them on June the 10th. That's where I think he's probably going to end up going. Just very, hard to get players out of Alabama. They're either going to Alabama or to Auburn, but he's also going to be visiting Florida State, Miami, and he will be visiting us June the 14th. I hope that we can close out on him because I would love to add, another pass rusher body to this class, right? I mean, we don't have any just yet. And I mean, we need to add somebody just to, have some extra depth behind the players that we already have up on campus. So going to be very important for us to close out on somebody. Zion Grady seems like he might be the one that's trending closest to our Volunteers. All right, now for Marion Dye, 6'5", 260-pound defensive end, also from Indiana. He's definitely going to be more of a strong side DN type, and he might even be able to work himself into a tackle as, kind of like more of a pass rush body. But as we're just looking at all the visits right here, you see that he's going to be going to Ohio State. He's also going to be visiting Tennessee on June the 20th, Purdue, Georgia, and Florida State. Looks like it's between us and Ohio State, with Ohio State having a very strong lead at this point. We have to do something to bring in another defensive end in this class. So that's pretty much how our defensive end recruiting is going. That's how our room looks. I think that the staff does want to add at least one more player. It would be ideal to add one Leo and then one strong side D end, but I don't know if it's going to come from anyone that we talked about today. None of these higher caliber blue chip guys. Now, what we can probably do is still like a underrated 3-star type of a guy, maybe a little bit later on in the cycle. I mean, that would be fine. We've been kind of skating by with that. You do want to continue to, build better classes every single year. And hey, who knows what happens as Tennessee, goes through the season and we're winning games. More players will want to come play for us. So if we have some fringe players that have now already really locked into a school before, I would say maybe that Oklahoma game, or, maybe even later than that. I would say maybe by like October, right? Like by mid-October, if we have some DNs that haven't chosen a school yet, that haven't locked into a school completely, then I think that we could maybe steal a few of them. But it doesn't look great right now at this point. I have no idea why, but we know that Coach Garner does a really good job of getting the most out of the talent that he has. He's done that since he's been up in Knoxville and really everywhere that he's been, period. So that's how we're looking so far, y'all, with the tight ends and with the defensive ends. Let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comments section. And as always, thank you for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.